Laura, you were talking quite a lot just in your presentation just now about actually what people can take from this event over the last 2 days. But really it goes beyond that, doesn't it? And they have to go back to basics before they start trying to use some of this stuff. Can you kind of explain in what way?
Well, I think what's really exciting about an event like this is that we've got the opportunity to meet people, to see new things, to be inspired, to hear about new models, new technologies, new approaches. And I think the learning and development professionals have got a really high aspiration about what they potentially could deliver back to business at the moment. But I think one of the things that we see, because we've been coming here for a while and we've been doing our research at Towards Maturity for the last 13 or 14 years, is the fact that actually we've been seeing many of these things before, but what we need to do this year is actually do something to make it happen. And I think one of the things that we need to be looking at is that we've been looking at what do the top performing learning organisations do. And those top performing learning organisations aren't necessarily captivated by the latest fad, and they go back to basics. And the basics are, they first of all focus on what is the business problem that I'm trying to solve. Something like 86% of them are really focusing on analysing the problem before recommending a solution. But actually it's only about half of us who've got that approach typically, and we tend to rush in with the thing that we think will solve the problem. So that's one of the areas, is about kind of really understanding about the business need and using that to actually have an intelligent conversation with business and get them bought in to your vision, because you're talking the same language about business output. So that's the first thing. And I think the second thing that the top performing organisations do is that they really understand their learners. They don't box them in through learning styles or they're millennials. What they do is they actually are proactive, and again about 85-86% of the top performing teams are proactive in going out and understanding how their staff learn what it is they need to do their job. And things like collaboration and the way that they use their mobile and how they use apps and how they support their own performance really bubbles up to the surface when you ask that question. And these top performing teams say, okay, well, let's start there when it comes down to our solutions. How do we create the right solution rather than forcing their learners in through perhaps a learning management system and e-learning courses? So they're very creative in understanding the right thing to use at the right time.
Was this piece of research quite a catalyst then? Because I mean, you sort of talked about this year we actually have to make it happen because we've heard it time and time again, but people sort of get a bit overwhelmed with what they might be able to do, and as a result of that nothing changes. Is this research kind of given a bit of focus to that process?
Yes, because actually the results were relatively similar to the year before and relatively similar to the year before that. So we have taken a fresh look at what it is that we need to do differently, and these top 10% in the sample who are getting the best results, we feel has really given us a really good focus and say, if we're going to do one thing, let's do that one thing that has made a difference from them. And we've identified 4 things, if you like, out of all the stuff that you could do as a result of today. Well, we talked about 2 already, about business buying and understanding your learners. Start there before you start with the technologies. But the other thing is about transforming learning. And you know, these top tech organisations, they're not just relying on the course, the e-learning course, the WebEx course, the classroom course, but they're actually thinking broader in how they support learning and performance in the heart of the workflow. You know, and so that's one area. You might take one particular project. Let's just focus in on that. A compliance project, a learning leadership project, and think about how can we do things differently to support our learners. And then the 4th area that we think is important is that we probably need to build the skills of our learning and development teams. These are new ways of doing work, and we have to actually be confident in doing that. So if we've got building business buying, understanding learners, we've got transforming learning, and we've got building the skills, and we're saying out of those 4 this year, choose one and focus in on that. It's a little bit like when you're trying to make sense of a jigsaw. They're all interrelated. All those pieces kind of connect together to deliver you the overall results, but you have to start somewhere. The corner, building business buy-in. The central picture that you want to start to build up, maybe transforming learning or the skills of your team. But focus on one of those areas. Do one thing well. The rest will flow, but we definitely need in this year to see action. And that's really our recommendation for anyone coming from lifetime learning technologies. Focus on one of those 4 things, go for it, and then the rest will all start to make sense for you.
It's quite a brave approach. I mean, to stand up to the business leaders and actually say, we need to look at this with a fresh pair of eyes when you've come back from an event with it like this, and there's all this glitzy new technology out there, and you've been sort of a bit impressed with what you've seen. I mean, how do you kind of make sure that the business leaders listen to the L&D industry on these things?
Well, that's where I think evidence really comes in, and often we haven't got that evidence from ourselves, and we've heard all the latest thing, but that's why we do what we do as a not-for-profit organisation. We want to put evidence into the hands of people, and in fact in this year's report we've got a chapter which is designed to be given to your business leaders to say 600 learning and development organisations, any one of them could be your competitor. This is what we're finding out. They're making this kind of business impact. They're changing the way that they're doing learning. They're integrating their thinking between HR, line managers, and as a business leader, this is a set of evidence that says you should perhaps be expecting more from your learning and development team than you are already. And so we've tried as much as we can to actually put that level of evidence in the hands of L&D leaders to give them that confidence. And even if they haven't, just to be able to pass the report and say, look, read this and maybe we'll have a conversation later. But I think hard-nosed evidence from outside of the organisation can really help to stimulate that kind of conversation, and to be honest, just give a little bit of courage that's needed. All we need is to start to have a new conversation, and most people who've done that have found that the door actually is flung wide open. So just pick up that courage, put down the fear, pick up the report, knock on their door. No problem.
So it really is more as a technology as a facilitator, and actually the fact that if you can have the best technology in the world, but if your basic business principles aren't aligned to what you want to achieve, the technology isn't going to make a heap of the difference.
13 years of research. We started our research saying, what do we need to do with technology? And within the first year, we found that actually it wasn't the technology that was making a difference. It was how people were thinking about the business needs and then using the right technology in the right place. And we have been tracking every technology that's coming out for the last 13 years, and we haven't found one where the technology itself is making the difference. It's all about those four principles that we've just been talking about.